Now it's time for us to look at some selected national dailies and see what this newspapers are saying. But as tradition, we'll start with a Daily Trust newspaper. Of course, I have a copy here in the studio. We'll start with the lead story that says residents protest kidnapping and block Kaduna-Abuja highway. The riders are worshippers abducted in Zamfara, and bandits burn health facility houses in Katsina. We have a pictorial there. I think it's what's happening in Gaza. Palestinian children fleeing from Israeli bombardment in Rafah. And then there's a boy who pushes a child in a makeshift buggy in Rafah on the southern Gaza Strip. You can take a look at that story. You can actually read that as well. Then Tinubu travels to Qatar with 38-man delegation. Page 6 has details of that. Reps to Tinubu review Orosai report before implementation. Page 5 has that detail. And then Kano governor folds his bus operation on immorality. Page 7 has details of that story. And with a kicker that says war on Gaza, Israel kills 112 at food collection center. Page 13 has details of that very heartbreaking story there. That's about the stories in front of the Daily Trust newspaper for today.
Stop taking the nation for a ride. Soyinka cautions leaders. Says decentralization is central to incomplete mission of nation being. This is the lead story on the Nigerian Tribune today. Atop the page, we see Abbas sets up 23-member committee on Orosai report. Federal government printed too much money, according to Abia governor. Laments free fall of the naira. That story is on page 25. Atiku wants entire power sector open for private investment. That story is on page 12. We see a pictorial there, of course, of the newly built Ikeja train station as one of the red line infrastructure. Insert is the managing director, Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority, Lamata, in company of the president, the Lagos State Governor, the Commissioner for Transportation, among others. And below that, we see Tinubu to NLC. You are not the only voice of Nigerians. If you want to participate in the electoral process, wait until 2027, the president said. Inaugurate Red Line Rail in Lagos. Rail accomplishment result of our painstaking reforms. That's according to Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. That story is on page 16. And just to the left, we see aggrieved residents block Abuja-Kaduna highway over bandits attack. Yes, Bello Musa had brought us details of that story in the news packages that we showed earlier. Also, Yoruba traditional rulers, Gani Adams, others hold security summit to tackle criminals with natural powers. Well, what are natural powers? I think page 25 will give you details on what those are. Allied killed 7 women through dating app, according to a suspect. That's on page 18. And finally, customs intercept 53 sacks of fake pharmaceutical drugs worth 1.739 billion naira in Oyo Osun Command. Our story is on page 17, and this about sums up the stories on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune today.
All right, let's get to The Guardian, and we have the big story here. On inflation, citizens turn to condemned expired foods in search of cheaper options. The big story is on pages 4 and 5. Let's go below that. Africa may shun West for energy funding, eyes $50 billion within. Page 3 has details of that story. Maintain peace, keep your political activism till 2027, Tinubu tells NLC. The story is on page 3 in the Guardian newspaper. And nominee rejects Tinubu's CBN job, cites conflicting commitments. Why this is happening? Why he rejected the job? Page 7 has details of that. And Soyinka folds coup in Africa, calls for decentralization in Nigeria. Page 6 has details. Bandits kidnap 40 worshippers in Zamfara Mosque. Page 20 has details of that story in the Guardian newspaper. And reps demand mandatory drug tests for students. Page 7 has details. Banks crowded as customers struggle to link NIN with BVN. Page 18 of the Guardian newspaper. And last story said professors dying over non-payment of salaries. ASU tells Obaseki, page 28 of the Guardian. And then there's a pictorial of the Red Line infrastructure. I mean the train station of the Red Line infrastructure, which the President of Nigeria commissioned yesterday. You can see the pictorial in front of the Guardian newspaper.
And the lead story on The Nation is Tinubu Labour's constant strike calls unacceptable. President seeks understanding of reform programs rather than partisan reactions. And atop the page, we see restructuring necessary now than ever. That's according to Nigeria's Nobel laureate, Wole Soyinka. That story is on page 4. It's time to protect yourselves with spiritual power, Oni tells Obas. Well, you want to know details of that story? Talking about spiritual power, read page 6 for that spiritual story. Beside that, we see Jais Bank eyes 10 billion naira from private investors. Page 8, also Osime Oshuala, top Peach Awards nominee. That story is on page 16. And on the bottom belt, we see Ayedatiwa, Akin Terinwa clash over allegation of billboards destruction. That story is on page 6. These are some of the stories on the front page of the Nation newspaper.
All right, let's quickly take the Vanguard this morning before we start our discussion on some of these selected national dailies, the stories, I mean, from the selected national dailies. The lead story says confusion over NIN and BVN linked to bank accounts. And CBN is mum about deadline, over the deadline, and the customers lament network failure. Big stories on page 5 this morning in the Vanguard newspaper. And then on Edo Gaba, how OT, LPNWC reconciled aggrieved aspirants with Akbata. Page 13 has details of that story. And then Nigeria's economy on track, American city mayor. All right, you want to know the mayor who is actually making this very, very bold statement, as some people have described, then you have to read the story on page 8. Pizarro gives NFF condition to continue as Super Eagles coach. Page 31 has details. And yes, that's about the headlines we have on the Vanguard newspaper this morning. It's so much to talk about this morning, ranging from what happened yesterday in Lagos concerning Nigeria's president's speech. And then, of course, we have these very loud story in front of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. But before that, joining us this morning to discuss some of these stories in front of the selected newspapers that we've taken this morning, we have our very, very super editor who has always making the date with us on Fridays. I want to say thank you so much for always being here. We appreciate all of the contributions. We have our editor-in-chief of the
21st
Century Chronicles here
Mr.
in the
Nuruddin
studio.
Abdullah.
Mr. Nuruddin Abdullah.
Mr. Nuruddin Abdullah he's yet to give me my palliatives, by the way. The last time he told me that it was because they were snatched somewhere around Suleja, Kaduna, Abuja Road. But
can that be his mouthpiece this morning? I think that's recently the Senate.
Oh, I'm voicing a complaint, actually.
Yes, actually. And the Senate said he apologized that, there was no 30 million or 30 billion given to anyone. So he was expecting that money, actually, but it never came. So.
Well, I think we can have that conversation after this program. But then again, residents protest kidnapping block Kaduna Abuja Road. Bello Musa had that story. If we could get clips from it, that would be lovely. But Mal Nuruddin, they came out in their numbers. They were holding the pictures of some of these vigilantes that were unfortunately killed when that happened. We saw videos of the Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Mr. Samuel Aruwan there. He tried to calm the situation, but then again, this is not the first time. Perhaps your perspectives on these issues, and especially when we would see a reduction in some of these activities in the northwest region.
Yes, what happened along the Gonengora axis of Kaduna Abuja Road, was unfortunate. It wasn't an isolated incident. If you look at, I think the last 48 hours, worshippers, number about 30, we are kidnapped.
Yes.
Some have 40.
You understand? Then health facilities were burnt along the Katsina area. Even before the incident, Gonagora axis, we are vigilantes, we are killed, and some civilians were abducted. There are some packets of attacks. So we are looking at a sort of a resurgence. The attacks, there are some sort of a lull some weeks ago, but now it seems that the bandits, are regrouping, despite the feats recorded by the security agencies. Some of the key commanders or kingpins of this kidnapping for ransom groups have been picked.
Neutralized.
So what they use. People have the right to protest. That's right. But it's just like Plateau. That Gonagora axis was notorious for certain things that are not good, you remember. Right from 1999, 2000, a lawmaker was hacked to death there. The House of Reps member during the Sharia crisis in Kaduna. So blocking the highway will create another scenario. It was a legitimate protest. They have the right constitutionally. But blocking the highway,
Was not
hoodlums,
situation.
and what if
take advantage of
a
this?
small thing can spark communal, religious. Nigerians are just desperate for small excuses to go over each other's throat. So that's just my take. Because immediately Gonagora
Starts.
you say Gonagora, it sends some wrong signals to certain quarters. So that was just the issue. And I hope the military, while they are picking the kingpins of these kidnapping groups, they should equally secure some of these areas. You saw what happened in Zamfara. Even before the last the abduction of the worshippers, there are some packets of incidents. Yes. We saw it in Katsina, even burning health facilities. Then in Kaduna, around the Sanga area, the border between Kaduna and Plateau, Sanga going to Akwanga, you understand? A village was ransacked, and the pictures were gory. You understand? So I think the security agencies need to firm up their.
Do you also share in this belief or in this opinion, and not a popular one though, that some of these attacks are coordinated to take the government's attention from what matters most, which is fixing the economy and making Nigeria go continuously in circles, because they come at a point and the entire news space is awash with a lot of security incidences from one region to another region, and then for a moment it's quiet, and then it comes up again. What's your take? What's your perspective on this theory?
I think I don't want to share that hypothesis you have just mentioned. Economy, security, they are going pari passu.
Indeed.
The fundamental role of government, as enshrined in Section 1 of the Constitution, protection of lives and property. Any government that fails in doing that lacks the locus to exist. You need to be alive to eat. If you look at the fate of people in the IDPs, it's a very terrible situation. So the government, and we are not how can I put it? The society must have some bad elements, and that is why there's government, and that is why there are security agencies to rout out those bad elements. Those who can be reformed can be sent to correctional centers. Those who need to be neutralized, as the military is using, there is need to, because they cannot be reformed. So while you are fixing the economy, you should as well deploy more resources more strategy, more talent, more men in ensuring security, because that's the number one. You have to secure the lives and property of Nigerians. If you fail to do that, then you are actually losing your locus to exist as a government. So they go pari passu.
Okay, let's take a look at this now, editor. Kano government falls Hisba's operation on immorality. Kano is a terrain you're quite familiar with, and the activities of Hisba, of course, appears on papers and news outlets from time to time. What's your take on this development?
I think there is even more development to that. The Commander General of the Hisba, Sheikh Ibrahim Daura, has resigned this morning.
Interesting.
Yeah, he resigned this morning.
That means we have some breaking news then.
Yeah. You know, actually, the Hisba as a board, as a morality, whatever, is good. But like the governor rightly said, we said this all the time, they shouldn't be lawless. They shouldn't use talks. You know, Islamically, it's Amr bil Ma'aruf, when Hawana al Munkar, you know, they preach goodliness and they preach against bad habits and what have you. So there are models operandi that should conform with these things. And they should be conversant with the fact that we are in 21st century. 10 years, 15 years ago, we don't know anything like TikTok. 30 years ago, there was no WhatsApp, Facebook, and what have you. All these things are here. So the operation of the morality police must conform with this.
That's current reality.
Yes. You have to, it's just like we're talking about security. You have to devise 21st century mechanisms using drones, using intelligence, tracking, and what have you, to address the criminality, yes. But when you are using a gunhu gestapo, like we saw videos of heavily built men cuddling, I don't want to use that. When I say cuddling, it means another thing. Heavily chested girls and herding them into mobile vehicles. Ideally, you should have women to do that.
Ideally.
Ideally,
yes.
You understand. And Hisba should have a legal department. So there are certain things, and you know, the problem at that time was they said that even pinpoint certain areas. There are bigger hotels. The bigger culprits are the politicians, the big guys, but beyond the reach of Hisba.
Indeed. So,
so I think the modus operandi need to be reviewed. So unfortunately, Sheikh Darawa has to cave in because of Murja Kunya. And Hisba should stop wasting its time and resources on TikTokers. There are certain things you cannot change. TikTok is not registered in Kano. Murja can as well move to Kaduna or Abuja and be doing whatever she's doing. So unfortunately, the thing, you know, and look at what happened. She was arrested, arraigned, remanded, and released controversially. They said that some top government officials released her from prison without even Hisba knowing or even the judge. And what the governor said yesterday is sort of a subtle confirmation of that. But he was right. He's mentioned of those videos. Ransacking hostels inhabited by Muslims and non-Muslim students. I don't think the operation is
seems like
right.
a violation of the right of privacy of someone.
Do you think that that's why the leader has to resign this morning?
He said it.
It's quite controversial. But yeah, it's quite
he was consumed by Murja Ibrahim Kunya.
These are female hostels. We need to bear in mind that this is a female dormitory. It's not a male hostel where you'd expect to go in any day, anytime and meet whatever. This is a female hostels when in the conservative north.
The bone of contention here is the modus of operation.
So the morality police need some structure.
Exactly. A modus operandi. And they should stop wasting their time on TikTokers.
And they should stop wasting their time on TikTokers.
All these things because of one girl, Murja Ibrahim Kunya.
Wow. Okay, so talking about people who are causing trouble, the NLC and the president have been slugging it out. Yes,
exactly.
indeed. You're not the only voice of Nigerians. You see, I find this statement very...
It's been some sort of a trade of words, you know?
Indeed. So if you want to participate in the electoral process, well, wait until 2027. The president says, I need your perspective. I need your opinion on this.
I hope the president was speaking on a lighter note.
Okay.
Because
Why?
I hope.
Why not? Why are you hoping
Why
that?
were you hoping?
Because that is it's a statement that is politically incorrect. They are Nigerians.
But the NLC are not politicians.
No, but they are Nigerians.
Indeed they are.
First and foremost. And they are electorates. They have every right to hold power responsible.
Well, do you allude or believe at this material time that many Nigerians see the activities of the NLC, especially right now, as totally unnecessary, bearing in mind that the NLC is threatening to down tools if the government fails to do what's right? Now, who bears the brunt of the NLC downing tools? If not we, the average and common Nigerians like myself and yourself viewers, who would have to contend with a complete absence of services if the NLC down tools for the same issues that we're facing currently?
It's not even about services. It doesn't start today.
Okay.
We suffered under Buhari's 8 years, whatever, because of what we did to NLC. When Buhari, who participated in anti-fuel subsidy removal protests twice, one in Kaduna and one in Abuja.
2013, 2014.
Yeah, during Jonathan's time, you know, was elected and he removed subsidy. NLC at that time under Waba led a nationwide protest. But do you know what happened? Because Nigerians were so much in love with Buhari, in my presence, around the Agariki area, I saw, can I call them APC or Buharists, Buhari apologists, attacking NLC during one of the protests. NLC was silent. They were described in the most terrible, they were PDP agents, they were agent provocateurs, you know, and all that. NLC lost its voice. They surrendered us to Buhari. The rest is history. We used to have NLC is the last man standing. NLC and ASU. They are the last two organizations that speak for the generality of the masses, irrespective of the political leaning of the government. But you said no, you are so much in love with APC, or you are so much in love with tinubu, like we are so much in love with Buhari and APC that no NLC. But look at what happened. We suffered for that. So what the nationwide protest they did, look at the reports. The NLC, to be fair to them, conducted themselves in the most honorable manner across the state.
Indeed.
The police commissioners, we are praising them.
We saw in Lagos State where the police shared beverages to some of the protesters.
We saw what the commissioner in Kano was saying. And what were they saying? They said, no, they were not protesting because of the 35,000 whatever. It's because of the general hardship. It's a legit protest.
Okay, so Edito, let me get your thought on this. Prior to that protest, TUC pulled out, and then just a few hours to the protest, we saw the National Association of Nigerian Students also pulling out of that protest. What does this say to, you know, the NLC and...
Are they breaking ranks?
It's usual. It was started during the military time. At the time, NLC was being led by even a sole administrator appointed by the military government. We remember the Pascal Bafiao and what a few, you understand. Ibn Buhari wanted to do that. Wanted to divide NLC. Ajero, who was based in Lagos, to lead one faction, and Waba to lead another. It didn't succeed, so to say. Even ASU.
ASU was so similar.
They registered 2 other just to break the rank of ASU. But at the same time, you know, we are poor students of history. The present government under President Bola Tinubu is one of the lead. He has been in the opposition since 1999 till 2015 when he joined the ruling government, the ruling party. So when you're talking about protests, he laid Lagos, the center of all protests in Nigeria. Tinubu rose against military dictatorship. He went on exile. He was declared wanted and what have you. So I don't know why he should be against legitimate protest.
But do you think it's too early? Because the president mentioned that in 2 different occasions, the NLC have declared strike in just 9 months. Do you think it's too early, according to the president?
It's the same thing we did with Buhari. You kept on giving excuses to Buhari until he grounded the country and left to Dora. There is nothing wrong in holding power accountable. He was elected by a popular mandate. He is not a sole administrator. He was declared as the person that got the highest lawful votes during the last election. So he should listen. And what the president said, if it is a joke or whatever, it's an expensive joke. There is hardship indeed.
Indeed, there is hardship.
You know, flaunting all these things, you know, he's in Qatar. You're saying with about 38 or 32, including his biological kids. What some people here can... Where did they get the dollar for the BTA?
All right, there's so many things that we need to talk about this morning. Before we go, let's just talk about the Orosanye report. Let's just say we have 1 minute. I just need your thought on the Orosanye report. You know, reps telling Tinubu to review Orosanye report before implementation.
I hope the president will have the political will to implement it. Buhari, in 2014, Jonathan directed the full implementation of the Orosanye report, the white paper. Just before Buhari left in 2021, he directed the full implementation of the Orosanye report. He set up 3 different committees after the white paper, but nothing happened.
Now they have 12 weeks.
They have 12 weeks. And like the House said yesterday, and like the Chief Femi Falana said, Orosanye report is 12 years old, outdated. We have a ministry, federal commission of Almajiri.
Which was not there.
Can you imagine?
At that time.
Just giving food to the boys. And what have you. So they need to do a very thorough job. March, scrap, and what have you. And you know what to do with the workers.
The report is an old report, and we do hope that the government, in its plans to implement the report, will also do its due diligence by doing a review of the report to ensure that it meets up with current realities. That being said, this is where we draw the curtain on the program this morning. I'm Nuruddin Abdullah, editor of 21st Century Chronicle.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure having you and hearing your perspectives. And we still always look forward to having you share the palliatives that you promised us all the time. From me, Sagir Ibrahim, I say thank you so much, viewers, for being a part of our date this morning and for following the program since 8 a.m. when it started till now. Do well to follow the conversation across our social platforms as more programs, news, documentaries continues on Trust TV. Happy new month, happy first Friday of the month, and have a lovely weekend.
And thank you so much for being a part of the program. My name is Martia Umar. For Pizarro's updates, if he still remains the coach of the Super Eagles, you got to get that at the top of the hour on 360 Sports on Trust Television. Thank you again.